Hey everyone, Michael Phoenix here, founder and staff of Surrealville City Online Media, in case you haven't noticed that by now. It's rare I go in front of the camera because personally there's no need for people to be in front of the camera anymore. But this is one of those rare occasions, and with the coverage of COVID-19, the coronavirus, novel coronavirus, whatever it's called now, I made a promise from the start to only present the facts. And I believe I've done that so far, and try to come out with interesting and different questions for politicians and various organizations on various topics. And doing this article is something that I didn't feel like, oh wow, I feel like doing an article on the virus like a lot of other media. This is something I've thought about very seriously for the past few days. And especially after going into the state's websites and now listing I have to update it, the numbers from the virus, both, trying to get all the numbers, the recovery rate, people tested negative, etc. There's something, this is the first question I have to politicians. At what point, there are a lot of other effects from this virus, from everything going on now, the new reality we live in, the social distancing, stay-at-home orders, etc. I'm not disagreeing with anything in the slightest. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not having, not voicing my opinion on that. But there's a lot of other effects, like I said, from this virus and everything going on, and a possibility, emphasis on the word possibility, of a lot more casualties from other effects of the virus, not just, okay, here's the number of people tested, here's the number of people hospitalized, here's the number of deaths. If you scan down the main page, starting with the word virus, you'll see that some of those effects. And the main question I have, that I'm even asking myself now, at what point do we say, okay, this is an accepted number of casualties, this is an accepted number of sickness, this is an accepted number of death? At what point, or what number, do our politicians, as a society and individually, do we say, okay, this is what we can accept, this is what we refuse to? I'm trying to look at everything from different angles and trying to see the entire picture of, okay, with increase, stay-at-home orders, etc. Is there an increase in suicide? Are we willing to accept, if there is, emphasis on if, are we willing to accept that as those casualties? If, and again, emphasis on the word if, there is an increase in domestic violence, child abuse, because of various new restrictions and everything, and putting people's safety first, are we also willing to accept that? I know I just did the wrong thing, but in different aspects, are we willing to accept the possibility of increased depression? Another possibility, these words I cannot emphasize enough, possibility and if. Is there a possibility of increased heart attack? People dying from heart attacks because of the higher stress level. And like I said, this is something I've asked myself, that we have to ask individually, we have to ask ourselves, we have to, as a society, as a community, we have to ask this question, start asking this question, among others. And even our politicians and our leaders, from the local government of the smallest town up to the federal, up to the senators and the president, when we start to look at all the numbers, not just what's directly related to the virus, what are we willing to accept? At one point, do we say this number is too high? Because I get press releases from different states. I just looked at all the numbers this weekend. Different states' websites for the totals. Seeing numbers, it's like, okay, it's like when you balance your budget. When you do your budget at home or whatever. Seeing those numbers, it's okay. These are numbers. These are numbers. These are just numbers. But each number, regardless of what column it's in, is a life. A man, a woman, or a child. No matter where you live, no matter what skin color you are, the demographics don't matter anymore. Each number, regardless of the column, is a life. And when those columns start lengthening, to add in the other effects, like I said, possible, emphasis on possible, increase in suicide, possible, emphasis on possible domestic violence increase, possible, emphasis on the word possible, increase in heart attack, stress-related illnesses, etc. When you start adding those columns onto the width of the spreadsheet or whatever, and then you realize that each one, from a person tested to someone who died for whatever the reason, when do we make, and especially our politicians and leaders, no matter what country, and I don't care, at one point do we say what is acceptable and what isn't? At what point, before this virus hit, and I can almost guarantee you after it, okay, somebody died in a car accident, somebody committed suicide, somebody was killed from gun violence. Yeah, it was we realized it was a tragedy, but forgive me for being so blunt and point blank, we didn't even blink. We barely even blinked. Well, guess what? Those numbers are still happening. I see the headlines. I've been hit my homepage, set to MSN, and I scan the headlines. So when the totals, if not even sure they can be added, everything can be quantified right now. When do we start placing the value on life again? And what categories take the priority? Thank you very much to everybody for all the support, especially lately. I know I've been trying my best. Vale City's on a one-person staff, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Just give you a quick scan of everything I've done in the past 9 days alone. I seriously wish I had the amount of people a couple more people on board, but I'm trying my best. We can get this to work. I'm going to really wind this out. Okay, just give you a quick rundown. Starting with virus questions, fact, and you. This is one section alone, so I'm going to try my absolute best to stay on top of everything. But I kind of veered off the subject. But things have changed drastically in our world and our society now. Like I said, at what point do we say enough? At one point, do we truly start valuing life? Michael Phoenix, founder and staff of Surreal Vale City Online Media. Like I was starting to say, thank you very much for all the support. You have no idea what it means. The retweets, especially the retweets on Twitter. God, thank you so much. The people and businesses who support the media, especially now, thank you so much. But most importantly, to you, your family and friends, and their families, this country and the world. No matter where you live, no matter who you are, please stay safe now and always.